everyone, welcome to Intro to Improvisation for Classical String Players, Part 1. As classical string players, we are so used to reading notes on the page and can get pretty deer in headlights when someone takes the page away from us. I've certainly been there. It's been a long journey for me and I still have more to learn, but I thought I could impart some of the knowledge that I have received along the way to you so that you might be a little less frightened when someone takes your notes away. These exercises I'm about to give you will help you internalize the sound of chords so that you will know what the note sounds like before you even play it. The goal for all of us as improvisers should be to have our brains just out of the picture so we don't have to think about what notes to play. My husband Ben Plotnick wrote an amazing violin improvisation book called Violingo. I'm not biased or anything. And I'm using that as the outline for this lesson. If you would like to dig deeper into improvisation on your stringed instrument and practice with, I kid you not, over 24 hours of backing tracks, you can purchase it via the link in the description of this video. Down there. Before we get started, there are a few prerequisites for this course. You will need to know the names of the notes on your instrument, all 12 keys and their key signatures, intervals, scales, and chords and arpeggios. If you got all that covered, then you're ready to go! As string players, we're so used to playing horizontally, meaning we're reading sheet music left to right, we're playing melodies, we are sometimes accompanying, but we can only play 2 notes really, at most, sometimes 3, so it's very horizontal. But when we're improvising, we need to start thinking vertically, that is, thinking about the harmony, the chords we're playing over. Let's talk about chords. So we're gonna think of chords in numbers instead of letters in all of this improvisation talk. And there's a good reason why. Imagine for a moment you are playing with a songwriter. You've rehearsed this song in A. You show up for the show. You're in sound check and that songwriter says, hey, I'm not feeling so great today. Can we move this song down to G? Now, if you've learned the song with numbers instead of letters, you're gonna be A-okay. Because the same rules apply between chords in any key. The 1 chord to the 5 chord will always sound the same in any key. Today we're going to focus on 3 of the most common chords, which are 1, 4, and 5. Let's talk about the 3 categories of chords. The first one is the tonic function chord. This is a chord that feels like home. So the most common tonic chord would be 1. If we're in C major, that would mean the 1 chord is C. The next most common chord is the dominant function chord. This is the chord that kind of feels like a question. It creates tension. It wants to be resolved. And the most common dominant chord is the 5 chord, which in C major, we're going to just be in C major today, that would be G. So 1 to 5. That return home feels so great. Another common chord is the subdominant chord, which kind of serves as a traveling chord, a journey chord. There's not as much tension as the 5 chord. To me, the 4 chord just kind of raises your eyebrows. So we would have C as the 1, and the 4 chord in C is F. So for this exercise, we're going to use all of the notes available to us in a given arpeggio in first position. That means that the lowest note in the arpeggio might be lower than the root note. So for cellists, for instance, if we were to play a G major arpeggio, we would actually start on the D on the C string. So all of those notes are available to us. How to practice this? We're not going to use sheet music. We want to use the names of the notes and our ears to guide us instead of the muscle reaction of seeing a note on the page and playing it on our instrument. We really want to internalize this. So if you want to, you can write down the letter names of each chord and put them in front of you. But the goal is to be able to find the notes in the chord that you're on instantly. We're only going to cover C major today, but it's important to practice this in all 12 keys because you never know what key a songwriter or someone might want to play in. I have played in some pretty gnarly keys. So you can use all the exercises we're doing today as a template for practicing the other keys, which should be easy enough because we are using numbers that translate very easily between keys. This first exercise isn't really a play along exercise as much as it is a do it on your own exercise. So feel free to press pause wherever you need to really make sure you're nailing it. Don't rush through it. Okay, Arpeggio Exercise Step 1. We're going to be in C major. We're going to start with the 1 chord, which is, you guessed it, C, and we're going to play all the notes available to us in that chord in first position. Violinists and bassists, if you're watching, know that you're not going to be playing the same notes as I am because our instruments are different. Viola, I'm right there with you though. So we're going to go from the bottom to the top and then just go right back down. Okay? To the 4 chord, which in C major is, that's right, F. It's an F major chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, F. Same deal. The lowest note possible, which on cello is actually going to be an open C. Might be different on your instrument though. Think about the notes in F major. To the 5 chord, which in C major is G major, a G major arpeggio, starting on the lowest note, going to the highest. So now that we have those 3 chords under our fingers, we're not having to think about the notes, they're just magically coming out of our fingers. We're going to go on to step 2. We're going to make it a bit harder. We're going to add some chord changes in. So for this first exercise, I want you to go up the arpeggio on the 1 chord and down the arpeggio on the 4 chord. So that means going up on the C major and coming down on the F major chord. Next, let's go up 4, down 1. Now we're going up 5, down 1. Up 4, down 5. Great, so once you've done all of those a million times and you don't even have to think about it, we can move on to this sweet voice leading exercise. The idea of voice leading is to create lines that go from one chord to the next in a given chord progression. So step 1, you'll be given a chord progression. Pick a note in the first chord and hold it. When the chord changes, move to the closest note in the next chord, and that actually might be the same note, since a lot of chords have similar tones in them. This isn't going to give you the most exciting line ever, but just bear with me and trust the process. We're going to start with the chord progression 1, 4, 5, 1, which in C major is C, F, G, C. I'll give you a quick example. Once you've gone through that and feel really comfortable, you can move on to step 2, which means adding in half notes. Same rules apply. We're going to move as little as possible to the closest note, or not at all if the chord allows us to stay. We're going to stick to chord tones still, so only notes that are in the chord that we're on. Here's an example. Step 3, we're going to add some quarter notes at will, so you can mostly play half notes, and then if you feel inspired, you can add in a quarter note or two here and there. A quick example. step 4, we get to add in some passing tones. That means notes that are not in the chord, but are leading to notes that are in the chord maybe. It's important to remember to keep all the passing tones in the key we're playing in, so in this case, C major. And if you can try to keep track of which notes are in the chord and which notes aren't, that will be hugely helpful as well. One last example. Tackled arpeggios and voice leading exercises for chords 1, 4, and 5. And you know there's still plenty of combinations of chord progressions we could be practicing voice leading over. You can make up your own, play with the metronome. If you buy Ben's book, there's plenty of backing tracks to practice over. Pick a new key every day, write it down in a log so that you keep track of what you've worked on. Part 2 of this lesson will cover the chords we didn't cover today. Chords 2, 3, 6, and 7. So that should be pretty fun. I can't wait to hear all of the improvising you are bound to do because of this. Thank you, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.